All right.
Ginger Runner.
What is up, everybody? Ethan Newberry, the Ginger Runner, here for another Ginger Runner review. Before I even get in today's review, I want to remind you, Kim just brought her YouTube channel back. So if you haven't seen it already, she just dropped a great video covering all of her gear that she used at the Whistler Alpine Meadows 110K. I encourage you to go check that out. Go subscribe to her channel, show her some love. Today, we're going to be talking about a product that I covered in my Headlands 100 gear recap video from Ultraspire. It is the Lumen 600 3.0 Waist Light. Alright. As we move into the autumn and winter months here in the Northern Hemisphere, the sun is going to set earlier, it's going to rise later, you're inevitably going to find yourself running in darkness at some point. And I've been noticing this over the last couple of years here in the Pacific Northwest, but people are running through the city without headlamps or any sort of lighting. Don't be that person. Either carry a headlamp or an alternative lighting source, like what I'm going to talk about today. So after the Kogala Raw made my gear list last year, I've been really into the idea of an alternative lighting source. Unlike the Kogala, the Lumen 600 3.0 is self-contained. What you're looking at is everything. It's lightweight, it's waist mounted, it has a rechargeable and replaceable battery, and the most important thing, depth perception. So what's great about an alternative lighting source, something that doesn't come directly from your head, is that your line of sight and the line of light are different, providing you with some shadows and depth perception. I recently went out to the trails at night to show you exactly what I mean comparing a headlamp to the Lumen 600. Here we go. Okay, so we're out here on the trail and we're actually going to see the differences between using a headlamp and this, the Ultraspire Lumen 600 3.0. Let's go. Okay, here's the trail with the headlamp, and here's the trail with the waist belt. One more time. Here's the trail with the headlamp, and here's the trail So clearly the light works. But for real, let's talk about the things that I like and dislike about the Ultraspire Lumen 600 3.0. Starting as always, things that I like. First, I like the face that you're making right now. I'm sure it's glorious. Secondly, depth perception. Having a light source that comes from a location not in line with your eyes provides shadows. And when you can see those shadows, you'll be able to see the rocks, the roots, all of the technical terrain on the ground in front of you, unlike a headlamp, which basically hides the shadows in your line of sight. I didn't realize just how much of a difference it would make having a light source come from a different location than just a headlamp. So whether you're dealing with a handheld, a waist belt, or a Kogala light that can go anywhere, I just encourage you to check it out, because the added depth perception you get from a light source in another location other than the head is great. Highly recommended. This does a great job. Self-contained. So as I mentioned, one of the big downfalls with that Kogala light and other lights like it is that you have a cord and a battery where you kind of have to figure out where to stash everything, and it becomes cumbersome. The less moving parts, the better, and by being self-contained just within its own waist belt, it's also removable. Having it all in one location, super easy to use, very few moving parts, easy to recharge, easy to replace the battery on the fly, and the light is so bright that I found myself not even needing my headlamp during the Headlands 100, so this is entirely self-contained. No bounce. So this is a huge benefit to having a single, really bright LED source where it's really wide beamed. As you're running on the trails, you'll notice that the beam of light is very wide. You do see bounce on the perimeter, but in the middle, you don't see anything, and it's amazing how little... I want to say I'm sorry, but I'm actually just kind of happy. Taking a second to move into dislikes. There's only a couple of them. First, dislike that I scared you twice. It shouldn't have happened more than once. I'm sorry. Second dislike, battery life. The battery lasts anywhere from 4 to 10 hours, which is a pretty wide range depending on the brightness setting that you put the Lumen 600 to. I find that the figures I actually got out of it are better than advertised, which is rare. At Headlands 100, I used it at full brightness and I found it getting anywhere from 5 to 6 hours before having to swap the battery. I do encourage you, if you do get something like this, to get a backup battery. It's very easy to swap out, but if you're going in ultra endurance events, 100 miles plus, you're gonna want a backup battery, either stashed in your pack or with your crew, or even a backup headlamp, because I found myself not even using my headlamp, which provided me a backup light source. Long story short, don't trust the batteries, always have a backup battery or headlamp. The strap. So the waist belt itself is made from this flexible material that is not great quality. I think everything up front is great. The strap itself, not so great. To get this waist belt to hold tightly to your body, you're gonna need to crank it down, and I don't see this strap lasting a lot of years of use. I think it's gonna end up stretching itself to the point of lost elasticity, just because the materials in the strap itself are a little bit cheaper. I haven't had an issue yet. I just don't see it lasting a long time. Everything up front, A-okay. And my final dislike is throw distance. So with one single LED that is very bright and very wide, you're not going to get a lot of throw. So that's one thing where the headlamps come in handy, is having that additional light that can send your beam further into the woods and further into the distance. This doesn't have that option. So what you get is a real wide, bright beam. You're not going to see 50 to 100 feet down trail. Supplementing with a headlamp on top will solve that problem for you. But that's it for dislikes. So in conclusion, I love this thing. I think it's fantastic. It's nice to have everything self-contained. It's easy to store in your pack or keep with your crew if you're in an endurance event with aid stations and the like. But my experience in this has been super pleasant, better than I expected. I found myself relying a lot less on my headlamp and going towards the waist belt as my sole light source. It's not even the brightest one they sell. They also have some smaller versions. It's worth looking into. But let's get more specific. The build quality, I think it's great. The actual apparatus itself, solidly built, metal, still fairly lightweight. The strap is the weakest point, as I mentioned. Comfort, surprisingly easy to use, surprisingly easy to fit. I think the strap has elasticity, at least now in the early stages of testing. We'll see where it is a year from now. Fit, it is able to fit pretty much everyone. There is so much extra strap material, so it doesn't matter what size you are, this thing will find a fit for you. Price, $159 is, woo, it's an expensive piece of gear, but I would say, again, it's a headlamp replacement. So if you're looking at really high quality headlamps, also keep in mind that something like this would also work. 600 lumens, rechargeable batteries, keep it around your waist. You don't have to worry about it on your head, stuff like that. It's an interesting alternative to keep in mind. And looks, completely non-applicable. It's a waist belt with a light on it. Bringing us to our final criteria is the Lumen 600 3.0 a buy, try, or a why. This is an item I'm leaning into the buy category. I love having it in my kit now. You used it at Headlands 100 and loved it. So I encourage you to look at alternative light sources outside of the headlamp realm if you're looking for endurance events that take place at night, or if you're doing some night running at some point in your schedule this season. And that, my friends, is it for my review of the Ultraspire Lumen 600 3.0. I'm a big fan of it. Have you used anything like this before? In the comments of this video, let me know what you think. If you like this video, make sure you like, favorite, and subscribe to this channel. Got social media links there, and at the bottom, patreon.com/. Three, two.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I don't know what to do with my hands. I can see my reflection. That's terrifying.